welcome to NFL Daily, where we welcome comparisons to Brett Favre, at least on the field. I'm Gregg Rosenthal. I'm in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio. I'm right next to Patrick Claybon. I'm looking at the beautiful big old mug of Nick Shook.
Beautiful.
In Cleveland. He's smiling despite what's been a tough day for, tough weekend rather, for Cleveland sports fan. How you doing, Nick Shook?
I'm good. You know, I got to see all three ALCS games live and in person. I had a great time.
Okay, you saw some great baseball games, but this isn't about baseball. And yes,
No.
I'll get to the whole like Brett Favre, Jordan Love comparison.
It's got Greg hot today.
That we were talking about before the
Greg
game.
is fired up about your tweets.
But I was especially enjoying this 1 o'clock window on the East Coast, 10 o'clock on the West Coast. On paper, we had two of the best games I thought of the year. Would they deliver? Oh, yes, they would. Let's start in Minnesota.
So here we go. One play separates the Lions from first place after all that. Darnold's going to work out of the gun. Final play of the game, barring a penalty. Darnold takes the snap. Back, looking, rush comes. Darnold hit. Darnold down. This game is over. Trevor Nowatzki with the sack. Your Detroit Lions are in first place. Oh, Trevor Nowatzki, big play, my man, in a game full of them.
Trevor Nowatzki. Hadn't heard of that young man before Sunday, but I have heard of Dan Miller, WXYT. It was a defensive play that finished off a 31-29 victory by the Detroit Lions, a game that featured a little bit of everything, some great rushing, some great quarterbacking, yes, some big-time defensive plays. Great catches by some of the best receivers in the game, and a great ending authored, Patrick Claybon, by Jared Goff.
Jared Goff almost did it again, Greg. Almost did it again. I'm looking at the stat sheet. We're calling the game on Game Day Live, 19 of 19 in the third quarter. And I'm like, when we come back, we'll see if Jared Goff keeps his perfect game going. You can put that on me, Lions fans, because the very next pass got tipped at the line of scrimmage and knocked out. But that's the type of day it was. The Minnesota Vikings could not get off of the field. We talk all week, especially me. I'm hyping up the Brian Flores defense because they have been an issue for everybody in the league. They blitzed on a season high 55.2% of Jared Goff's dropbacks.
Woo, that's high.
On those dropbacks, he was 13 of 15 for 163 and a touchdown.
Wow.
Jared Goff, laser-like right now. And there was a spot for criticism towards the end of the game. Dan Campbell, there's a minute and 13 seconds left. They are in field goal range, and Dan Campbell elects to kneel it out and have the kick be not the final play of the game, because there were still going to be 15 seconds on the clock afterwards. But he sends Bates out there, has faith in Bates, who after the game was talking about, you know, I'm looking for jobs. I'm on Indeed. Like I'm working at car dealerships. I didn't know I would be here answering questions. He puts that thing in the back of the net, and the Lions win. But a dicey end of game situation. But how much Dan Campbell could we possibly be other than having faith in Bates?
Yes.
And then in a Hail Mary situation, watching what the Buffalo Bills did against Aaron Rodgers and say, no, I'm Dan Campbell. Aaron, send the house.
Yeah.
Send 5.
Yeah, that was amazing by Flores. The strategy, we'll get to that in a second. And you mentioned Bates, who was training to be a brick salesman, because you don't just become a brick salesman. You got to build that, education brick by brick to get there.
Oh.
Let's listen to Dan Campbell after the game.
Just a great team win, complimentary football across the board, offense, defense, special teams when we need it most, and really proud of these guys. That's a huge win on the road, tough environment, first one, and you don't want to say must win, but we needed that in a bad way.
Interesting wording there, that they needed it in a bad way. Maybe he's thinking about
They're 5-1.
Like how that game was going. They lost Aiden Hutchinson, though. That was an emotional loss, and they were trailing in this game 10-0 early. Then you get a 28-17 lead entering the fourth quarter. You give up the lead, and so maybe that's how he was feeling. That would have been a really heartbreaking loss, but no. Goff drives him down at the end, and too much faith in Jake Bates there, who's been a little up and down this year, and you would have liked it to just finish the game out the way their offense was playing. But you don't get criticized too much if you win. It's interesting on the other side that they were setting up for a potential long field goal, and they got a penalty before that last play we just listened to from Dan Miller. It would have been a 68-yard field goal attempt for, how do you say his name? Will Reichard?
Reichard.
And Reichard is awesome. Reichard is one of the best kickers in the league right off the bat, and they say he's got that distance to go 68, that he's hit 70. They thought 73 was too much. So that strategy by Campbell almost, came back to haunt them. Sam Darnold just took too much time on the play before. But yeah, Nick, the thing I'll take away from this game is what Patrick, of course, led with, because he's such a talented broadcaster. He knows to go right to the nuts of it all.
I'll just thundersteel.
It's Goff outsmarting Flores. Goff and Ben Johnson for the third straight time saying, whatever you're throwing at us, it's not going to work. The old idea of that you can blitz Goff into submission, that's not going to work. And his numbers under pressure were really good too, because they did get plenty of pressure, and he made it happen with a number of really nice throws and good decisions.
Yeah, let's not overlook the fact that he plays behind one of the better offensive lines in the NFL as well. And it was very clear on what I thought was his best decision of the day, the touchdown pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown down the middle, where he looks left. The blitz is in his face. They've sent 5 or 6 guys, and they all run into just a brick wall of an offensive line. He looks left, resets, sees him down the seam, and then puts the ball perfectly on him. That's who Jared Goff is right now, and when he has time to throw and when he's comfortable, and that's why we're seeing these peak results. And make no mistake, they needed every single one of those completions in this game, because this was an all-out war. You go from being down 10-0 to then all of a sudden you're up 14-10. Then you lose the lead again in the second half. You're on the road. The place is loud. They're blaring that obnoxious horn, and you need a win over your division rival to move into first place. I totally see why Dan Campbell said it was a win that they needed. I mean, they don't need a turning point, but this was a statement win. And they came off a blowout last week. Not all of them are going to be blowouts. This is a real test, and they passed.
Yeah, Patrick, tell me how the Detroit defense looked, because, look, the Vikings get their first touchdown after a fake punt fail by Minnesota, and then they hit him for a quick, long run by Aaron Jones, who is back for this game, who really helps out their offense. And they get another touchdown on the Ivan Pace fumble return with about 6 minutes to go, which really felt like it swung the whole game. But offensively, that means they only allowed one other touchdown, the Lions. What was it when Minnesota had the ball? What did you see?
Minnesota it was a lot of, Justin Jefferson had 7 catches on 7 targets for 81 yards. 8 targets, because that one towards the end was didn't know Sam Darnold was looking for Jordan Addison or Justin Jefferson. It was one of those high throws from Darnold. But this defense continues to really be and we've only seen, this is the first game without Aiden Hutchinson. Wait for Brian Branch to make a play. And it's almost since his very first game in the NFL, where he picks off Patrick Mahomes, where you've seen guys kind of running the wrong way. Carlton Davis had a punch out that got called back ultimately, but Brian Branch consistently in the right spot. Terrion Arnold didn't have a lot of those pass interference calls that he had all season, but essentially this team, 32 is the playmaker, and everybody else, they played a lot of man today. It was 10.5% higher than at this point last season. A lot of man against the Minnesota Vikings, which is tough to do, considering Justin Jefferson has 1,000 yards in his career.
Right.
In just 8 games against this Detroit Lions team. And
Jahmyr Gibbs pops off for a couple of long runs. He's been waiting to have some long runs this season. And he ends up going 15 for 116 and 2 touchdowns. But just a good football game. And now the onus is sort of on Minnesota. They lost this game, but it just sets up all these NFC North matchups at the top of this division are going to be so good. I was going to say the Vikings are now going to have to win in Detroit, and maybe that's true, but Green Bay's in this race, and Chicago's in this race. Who knows what are going to be the big games at the end of the season. Let's move on to the Super Bowl rematch that happened in Santa Clara. Take it away, Mitch Holtis.
14-17 to go in the game. Kansas City 14. San Francisco 12. 4th down. Less than a yard for a touchdown. Mahomes takes the snap and wants to throw it. He'll step up into the pocket. Flag on the play. Mahomes is into the end zone. Touchdown, Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes, get this one. His first rushing touchdown since Christmas Eve of 2022.
Patrick Mahomes trucks Malik Mustafa on the goal line, and then he stares at him. Well, I think he was staring at him because Mustafa wouldn't let go of his leg. I think he was just absolutely stunned that he was put on highlight reels for at least the rest of the week. You know that's going to be on Angry Runs, maybe for the rest of Mahomes' career, because there aren't many plays where Patrick Mahomes runs over one of the toughest players in the NFL. That was Mitch Holthus, as I said, WDAF. The Chiefs take care of business, 28-18 as the weeks wear on, and now I put them second in the show because they're the only undefeated team left. Vikings have that loss. It doesn't even matter, like, if you have a bad game out of Patrick Mahomes with a couple interceptions. You can win in so many different ways, and the Chiefs get better and better every week. And that's sort of my biggest takeaway, Nick, that, like, yeah, the passing game is going to have some issues, but you can't look at this team now in week 7 and not say, man, they look like a better team than they were in week 2 and week 3. So to me, they're no longer winning ugly. They're just winning, playing good football. And yeah, you got to fix the turnover problem. But to me, that feels a little fluky in terms of Mahomes' interceptions. They got the job done today.
I mean, it depends on how you define ugly, because those who like defensive battles say it's beautiful, but those who like offensive showdowns will say this one was ugly. It wasn't the prettiest, but it speaks to where the Chiefs are right now. We've been down this road before. We were here last season doubting the Chiefs down the stretch. They don't have enough weapons. They're not putting it together. They go on a hot streak. They win the Super Bowl. They're getting hot earlier than they did last year. They're so hot, they're still undefeated, but it's the fact that they can win a game where Mahomes throws 2 picks because their defense is so good. They forced 3 picks on Brock Purdy and have the entire 49ers offense in hell. And that's the sign of a complete team. It's a team that's obviously won 2 straight Super Bowls. They know how to get it done, even on the road. And they come in there when their quarterback's not having the best day, but he still contributes by trucking somebody on the goal line. You get 3.5 yards of carry, which isn't great out of Kareem Hunt, but it's enough to steady them. He scores 2 touchdowns, and you walk away with an emphatic victory that statistically doesn't look great, but it doesn't matter because you keep stacking those wins.
Right. It's a game where there's 5 interceptions, no touchdowns by Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes. And it was a reminder for what I saw when I did a Super Bowl rewatch at some point. I think it was in training camp. And it was a reminder that was like a very defensive game. I mean,
yeah,
the 49ers defense played more than well enough to win the Super Bowl. And the Chiefs defense obviously did too. And then both quarterbacks had really heroic moments. It was a great game back and forth. This was not a great game back and forth. This was 2 really good defenses and an efficient Chiefs offense. So I got some next-gen stats.
Okay.
Ooh.
Going into this week, the Chiefs actually were second in the league in terms of success rate, behind only the Lions, who actually had the highest success rate of any team since 2006, which is crazy. So the Chiefs are second in the league in success rate. So they're very efficient. I think sometimes commentators overuse the word efficient. It just means like they're not that good sometimes. But it's true. The Chiefs are really efficient, and yet they have the second lowest explosive play rate in the entire NFL. So it's what your eyes are telling you. They are just a slow-moving offense. Their run game, actually, this season had the lowest explosive play rate since 2006, which is outrageous. They just can't pop like a 10, 15-yard run. Now, this game was a little different. Mahomes, he had the rushing touchdown, and I thought maybe the biggest play in the game was where he ran along the sideline when it was very much still up and down, and he did that voodoo where he fakes the pass when he's past the line of scrimmage, and the linebacker falls for it anyways, and he ends up with 33 yards down the sideline. That's an explosive run. You got a 20-yard run from McCole Hardman. You had a nice seam ball to Noah Gray, and Samaje Perine had a screen pass that went for 22. That counts as explosive. So they had a couple more big plays today, and yet it still is a struggle. Travis Kelce, doesn't have a big day. 5 targets, only 17 yards. And I just look at this running game. Kareem Hunt goes 22 for 78. They picked up the yards when they needed it, and it's like I guess they don't need more. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. My thought is, Patrick, that they'll figure out how to get more in the end. And for now, they don't need more.
Well, it's almost like, so they get that one rushing attempt for Xavier Worthy coming back around, and it's like, okay, well, here's the explosive opportunity.
Right.
He gets 5 yards. And if it's not Xavier Worthy, then what are you're relying on late stage Kareem Hunt to make a play. Maybe it's Patrick Mahomes doing
And Mahomes had Worthy wide open deep and overthrew him. That was surprising on one play. And then they used, on that play you mentioned the Worthy, he got hit so hard. It's something that Bomani Jones said that stuck with me on his podcast. Just like he didn't think Xavier Worthy was like just weighed enough to be a regular NFL player like this. And that hit made me wonder. Sometimes you do think like, man, this guy cannot take too many hits. He's going to have to be careful.
Well, and I think one thing that could be contextualized there, Mustafa's hit a lot of people very hard. He's trying to cover and hit Patrick Mahomes at the same time, like coming back at the goal line. Like that's tough to do.
Yes.
And so like it's a one-to-one comparison because there were blockers and Mustafa eluded the blockers and all of a sudden he's in Worthy's face. And it's like, he's not necessarily trying to run somebody over at that point. It's going to be a slog, right? For KC, it's going to feel like a slog. Like I scoffed at you guys. You had, I think Cynthia picked 28 points. You picked 25 points in this game, and I'm thinking the Chiefs aren't scoring that many points against San Francisco. No, they just, as you pointed out, efficient. 22 first downs.
I mean,
they just go out there and get yards.
That number says it. Like what I was just saying, 22 first downs, but only 329 yards and 8 for 14 on third down. They've just sort of figured out situational football right now. They have the couple turnovers, and let's be real. It's about the defense. They played press coverage today on 60% of their snaps, their highest rate of the year. They did not allow a completion on those press coverage snaps. 0 for 5. At first I was thinking, like, how did Purdy only get off 5 snaps if they're playing that on? But it's because he was scrambling around, because he's throwing interceptions, because he's taking some sacks, not a ton of sacks, but Karlaftis had a big one and had a big quarterback hit in a big spot, and they just didn't value what they were looking at on the other side of the football. And that brings us to the biggest takeaway from this game, which is that Brandon Ayuk left with a knee injury, and Kyle Shanahan said that he fears it's a torn ACL. Generally, when they say that means the initial tests are it's a torn ACL, but the MRI that they do that night or the next day can sometimes tell a different story. That has happened. It's not too often, and that obviously would be just a devastating blow for Brandon Ayuk and this 49ers team. They also were without Deebo Samuel for almost this entire game. He was listed with an illness late. It was not on the injury report, but he had something come up over the weekend. It was also a weekend where Diana Rossini of The Athletic threw out there that he's a name to watch in trade talks, which I found interesting. I can't imagine that would be the case if Brandon Ayuk is out for the season, because they certainly need Deebo Samuel. Jacob Cowing stepped in this game. Ricky Pearsall played for the first time as a pro, caught 3 passes. Cowing was pretty explosive. But yeah, like one of those 3 Purdy interceptions, Nick, was throwing to Ronnie Bell, where Ronnie Bell just looked like he was going the wrong way. The other 2 interceptions were pretty ugly. Just one bad throw by Purdy, and one of his worst games, I would say, as a pro, and another bad throw where he was getting hit at the same time. But as Tom Brady liked to point out, like, he didn't know where he was looking anyways. Tom Brady was very hard on Brock Purdy in this game, and I got to admit, Shook, I liked it.
Yeah, that clip I already saw twice where Tom Brady's just like, even if he gets a clean throw off, I don't know where he's going. Brock Purdy has a tendency to have these days against good defenses occasionally, but the whole Deebo Samuel idea that he could be traded, it just blows my mind, because as soon as you take him out of the game, and especially when you don't have Christian McCaffrey, you realize that you've lost the key that unlocks this offense. Why would you even consider tossing the key in the river for whatever you might get out of it? Like, that makes no sense to me at all. And if Ayuk's down like we think he is, I feel like that's going to disappear, because he's absolutely an essential part, especially if they don't have Ayuk.
I think they'd only do it depending if they believe they need something else on their team that they could get back this year for Deebo, that they could get back. And I hear what you're saying, Nick, and I think it's true with Ayuk out of the lineup, but he's just been up and down getting them. And maybe there's more to the story than we really know, that they would consider that. It might just be about the contract, but I'm with you. It doesn't make any sense. Juwan Jennings was also out for this game with an injury, so they were just really shorthanded. And Jordan Mason did play despite his shoulder injury, came up short from a couple touchdowns. They did not run the ball well for most of the game, popped a couple like in the second half, but for the most part, it was their defense just hanging on, trying to keep them in it. But Kyle Shanahan, he just must feel like he's got a Kansas City Chiefs problem and he's sick of it.
There's no way to sugarcoat that. We got our ass kicked today. Lots of reasons for it, but those are things that they don't need to sit and think about today. We'll address all those tomorrow. We'll get together. We'll go through the truth of the whole tape and, be hard on each other and find a way to put it to bed so we can come out here and make sure we put our best foot forward and find a way to get a win versus Dallas.
3-4 on the season. The 49ers are just not having a good time right now. That under wins total I took in the over-under wins total draft, I'm tracking these. That's looking pretty good right now. You know what? Who else is looking good? Jordan Love. Let's go to Lambeau.
Off the left hash for the veteran, 11 years out of Temple, Brandon McManus. Super Bowl winner with Denver. Packers along the sidelines. Hand in hand. Here's the snap. Low snap. Placement made. Kick to the upright. And it is good! Yes! It is good! Yes! It is good! The Green Bay Packers have won! Brandon McManus, 45-yard field goal. Welcome to Green Bay!
Wayne Larrivee on WRNW. Yes. Brandon McManus. Speaking of setting up kickers, in a spot that maybe you're having a little too confident in your kicker, the Packers took a lot of time setting that field goal up and were bailed out, frankly, not just by McManus, but by Romeo Doubs, who made a fantastic catch. Was it on third down? I don't even know, but over the middle on a slant to set up that 45-yard field goal. Yes, McManus, the new kicker for the Packers, on a day that Jordan Love made some of the most beautiful throws that you'll ever see. And he had a couple interceptions, as he's wont to do, hence the Favre comparisons. We'll get to that in a minute. But my thing, Nick, watching this was I saw one quarterback. There's two of my favorite young quarterbacks in the league to watch. 2 top 10 quarterbacks already in my mind. And in your mind, I believe in the QB index. That's where they're at. I saw one young quarterback who's getting supported by good offensive line play. That's Jordan Love. By a good running game. Really, that's both of them. And by excellent scheme. Guys getting open, the right talent around him, and cohesion in terms of being able to pick up the free blitzers, pick up stunts, and being put up in a situation to succeed. That's Jordan Love, who ended up with 3 touchdowns, 220 yards on the day. On the other side, I saw a quarterback in C.J. Stroud that is not being set up to succeed when he's dropping back. 10 for 21, 86 yards. And you could put some of that on Stroud, but he was under pressure practically every snap. It looked like their offensive line has never seen a stunt in their life. Unblocked defenders on every other play. And then running the ball, you can see that Joe Mixon had a lot of big runs and did have a nice day, but they had a ton of negative runs and a ton of run stuffs. They ran the ball on first down 9 out of 10 times after halftime. So predictable play calling, terrible offensive line play. And to me, that was really the difference, because I think both of these quarterbacks were game. They both had great 2-minute drives at the end of the game to, really set up their teams to win. Stroud had a ridiculously good pass to put them ahead on a field goal that was before that field goal drive, but it was one-sided to me in terms of the schematics, in terms of the offensive coaching.
Yeah, and that explains the extreme emphasis on the run, which is that the Texans know their offensive line is not good when it comes to pass protection, and the only way to keep a defense honest is to get the run game going, which is why they're turning to that so often. But the book is out on them. I hate to say it, but the book is out on them. It's been out on them since that Vikings loss. They can't pass protect. CJ has been dealing with chaos all season. He does not look like he's playing with the same comfort, not because of him, but because of the offensive line that he did last year. So everything around him kind of falls apart because they have a lot of weapons around him. They got a lot of talent. Joe Mixon had a nice day, but he's not supported in the same way, like you said. So he's being asked to be a hero because he has no other choice. And that's how you get a stat line in a game like this, against a defense that has recognized that. I go back to the Vikings game because we know Brian Flores loves to blitz. Well, this game, it's not even so much that they needed to blitz. It's just the fact that they're getting pressure regardless. They blitzed 5 times, and they still got, a pressure rate of nearly 50%. That speaks to your offensive line. You're setting your quarterback up for failure. No matter how good he is, he still needs time to throw. So that's the Achilles heel on them. That's the weakness that people probably aren't paying attention to, that are going to pay attention to it now because they lost a game like this.
They simulated the pressure on me because I could have sworn they were blitzing the whole game. I'm glad you did that, but they were showing blitz, and Jeff Hafley, their defensive coordinator, got a game ball after the game. I watched the post-game locker room thing, and it was a lot of simulated pressure and a lot of confusion. And as good as the run game looks on paper, their success rate was very low. Joe Mixon still only 36%, 6 run stuff. So a lot of negative runs that put them in tough situations. And give credit to the Packers defense, which was flying around. And they really should have won this game by more. They lost the turnover battle 3-0. They were being put in a bad spot once in the red zone on a special teams fumble by Green Bay, and then twice on those Jordan Love interceptions, and the defense really stood up tall and won the game.
Yeah, it was, and it wasn't the traditional muff kick. It was Ballantyne, one of the up guys, just kind of being, it's one of those Peter situations.
Yeah.
Like, hey, watch out for the football.
fire.
and no, he didn't. Ball hits him. Texans able to recover that, but again, Packers defense stands up, and as you guys talked about pressure. When they actually did get pressure, not a simulated pressure, when they actually got pressure on C.J. Stroud, he was 3 of 9 with a 48.4 passer rating. That was the type of circumstances he was in. But yeah, Jordan Love was feast or famine. That's what Mark Ross was saying while we're watching this game on Game Day Live. It was either going great for the Packers and Jordan Love is throwing this dime, getting past the fingertips of a defender, or it's gone absolutely horrible. And on the final drive, Jordan Love threw a fadeaway YOLO ball to Dontavian Wicks that could have easily got picked off, and they could have lost the game, leading to some conversation about a certain.
Was that the one
Packers
over the middle, you mean?
Yeah. In the end zone.
That was a perfect play to bring up because it was like 1 inch away from being a huge gainer.
Yeah.
And not getting tipped, and a really nice, but 1 inch. But it was tipped, and then it was like 1 inch away from getting intercepted, and would have been his 3rd interception on the day. I mean, you're not kidding about the boomer bust. He had the 2 interceptions. They also had 4 3-and-outs and a 4-and-out. So, this was a game that had a little bit of everything. I think it was a really good game. A lot of not a lot of offense total yards wise. In fact, in the second half, there was a sequence where Texans punted 4 straight times and the Packers punted 3 straight times. And yet there were some beautiful throws by Jordan Love. The touchdown to Wicks was awesome. The dime to Tucker Kraft over the middle was just a beautiful throw and a catch. That's one where I want to see the end zone angle because I just know it's going to be so pretty. Josh Jacobs ran really well. Joe Mixon is reborn, is running really hard when he gets a little bit of a lane. It was awesome. C.J. Stroud, for everything I said that he struggled, the throw he had to Xavier Hutchinson, which would have been our highlight to start the game. It was on a 3rd and long, totally under pressure, ended up getting the Texans even closer for their field goal, but also killed the clock and took away the Packers timeout. I mean, that was C.J. Stroud in a nutshell. It was a little bit of everything. It was a fun game. These two teams are 5-2, and as I mentioned at the top of the show, and I guess as Mark Ross was saying, yeah, Jordan Love is getting a lot of these Brett Favre comparisons, and Matt LaFleur doesn't want to hear him.
Hopefully we can put him in better situations so he's not throwing, picks, so all you talking heads out there can ease on the Brett Favre comparisons.
Okay, now even LaFleur's jumping in, and I see this on Packers Twitter. All these Packers fans are like, "Oh no, he's another Favre." He's another Favre. Are you crazy? This man won 3 straight MVPs. I'm not talking about Brett Favre the man. I'm talking about Brett Favre the player. If you could tell me, or Packers fans, that you're gonna get Brett Favre's career right now. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like I said, one of the best players in the league for most of his career. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, you take that. You take that every opportunity. But I don't know if that's the context.
They're saying, yeah, he's taking a lot of chances, so he's throwing a lot of picks. Yeah, that's okay. Sometimes picks aren't the total end of the world. The total package is working, and I'm just saying, people are using it like a slur when he's an all-time great. Literally 3 straight MVPs. He's the only person to ever do that, Nick Shook.
Yeah,
Sorry.
he'll break past that if he can actually get rid of the tendency. Because the reason the Packers fans feel this way is because they saw the first half of last season and they saw him self-destruct and make, try throws that would kill drives where they just needed to get into field goal range and stuff like that. If he actually shakes it off over the long haul and wins games like this, even with a pick or two, then you'll take it because the results will follow like they did with Brett Favre. It's just we're so early in that of course they're going to throw it there and LaFleur's going to
it's worth it. I love it. It's entertaining. It's just crazy. Like, people overrate interceptions just a little bit. I was listening to Joe Flacco on Chris Long's Green Light podcast, and Flacco was talking about last year with the Browns, just like, hey, he's too old to worry about interceptions. He's trying to win. And I know what he meant. Like, sometimes being aggressive is worth it. And when you're Jordan Love, now is that time. All right, before we move on from this game, I do just want to hear Stefon Diggs talk about his rivalry with Jair Alexander. They got into a pregame shoving match, and this just made me happy. Credit here to Chancellor TV on Twitter.
I was walking to the locker room in the beginning of the game, and I heard somebody chirping. And I'm never the bigger person, so that's how I go and get by myself or with a million. So I'm never the bigger person. I ain't let it go. Obviously they picked it up or whatever, but I ain't with the football tough guys. It is what it is.
Frame it. Put it on the wall.
I love it.
I'm never the bigger person.
It's going on a quote graphic, and it's going to do numbers ultimately.
I absolutely love it. Yeah, he wasn't. I mean, these two teams were fighting all day long. It was like a rivalry game, except it was Texans, Packers. Finally, just like a little bit of love to this safety group for the Packers. Evan Williams, huge plays in this game, huge open field tackle on a 2-point conversion. Xavier McKinney, big time sack, keeps getting it done. And like I said, Romeo Doubs is awesome. Maybe he should have been upset. He should be a big part of the game plan. When they needed a play today, it was to Romeo Doubs, 8 for 94. But the quality of those catches, the quality of those routes, he was putting people in the dirt. Sometimes it was Derek Stingley, like good players. Everyone got the business from Romeo Doubs, a really underrated player, and was really important in winning a game. Like I said, they lost the turnover battle 3-0, but their defense, and yes, Jordan Love got it done. Let's take a quick break. Fun start to this Week 7 recap.
Hurts in the gun. Gainwell to his right. Motion. A.J. Brown. Hurts takes the snap. He's back. He steps up. He lets it go, and it is caught. In for the touchdown, A.J. Brown.
When there's a question, go to A.J. Brown.
You cannot throw a ball any more perfectly, my man.
Mike Quick, he's right. And it's what Jalen Hurts thinks, certainly, if you've watched the last 2 weeks of Eagles football. 28-3. Yes, Nick Sirianni going for it in a couple big spots in this game on 4th down, and his team came through for him. A.J. Brown with the 41-yard touchdown reception. That was WIP. Of course, Merrill Reese, the great Merrill Reese, starting the call. Saquon Barkley-Patrick returned to the Meadowlands, and I didn't watch this game as close as you did. Did we have a lot of shots to the owner's booth? Because I don't think John Mara was happy watching Saquon go 17 for 176 and a touchdown.
Yeah, we didn't early. Of course, he came up, he daps up John Mara before the game. There's shots of jerseys being burned and all of that type of chicanery. Well, hopefully somebody got the tattered jersey out of the fire pit because that made me want to remember Saquon had his second highest rushing yardage total of his career in his first career game against his former team.
In only 17 carries.
In a game that started punt. Azeez Ojulari, Brian Burns, this Giants defense playing well, having to deal with an offense that was really doing nothing. The Eagles go punt. There's a second down, and Saquon pops off for 55 yards. Later on, they score on that drive. Then that next drive, the play that we just saw, the Giants defense forces a 4th and 3. For some reason, they got their 5th stringer matched up against A.J. Brown, one-on-one with no help.
Was that like Nick McLeod? Yeah. They probably thought they were running it there, and they did not.
Yeah, they did not. They're throwing to A.J. as Jalen was more than comfortable doing. After that, it's pretty much over. Daniel Jones, well, not Daniel Jones, because eventually we did get to see Drew Lock, but 8 sacks for this Philadelphia Eagles defense. A litany of players. This wasn't just Jalen Carter going off. This was, I think, 6 Eagles got sacks in this game.
When Bryce Huff gets a sack, then you know it's all
They're
happening.
getting healthy.
Sorry.
That's how you know.
Bryce Huff's return to MetLife.
I got to say, though,
went pretty well.
these last 2 weeks have been really big, I think, for the Eagles in their defense because they really struggled at the beginning of the year. And, yes, you got to play Deshaun Watson and Daniel Jones back-to-back weeks, but you've racked up huge sack totals, and they've kind of shown, okay, we can beat up on really bad offenses, which I didn't think this defense necessarily was capable of. And everyone's eating, at least since they're bye. As you mentioned, Nolan Smith playing pretty well, too. Daniel Jones gets benched, Nick, and after the game, Brian Daboll said Daniel Jones will be his quarterback. The score was 28-3 at the time. He said he wanted to see if Drew Lock could provide a little bit of a spark. Narrator, he did not provide a spark.
He did not.
He had 8 attempts for a total of 6 yards. So not even Malik Neighbors could save him here. Yeah, really one-sided and really starting to look like that Seattle win was like the high point of this Giants season.
Yeah, and, I love to give their front a lot of credit because that is the strength of their team. But when your offense is this bad, I mean, look, the Eagles blitzed once. They got 8 sacks and they blitzed once the entire day. 2.5% according to Next Gen Stats.
Yikes.
That's bad, guys. That's bad for a Giants defense that's lost. Also, can I push back against the spark thing? When has the spark ever worked, coaches? Oh, we're looking for a spark. No, you're just looking for a change because you know what's going on right now is not going to work for you. Rough, ugly day, but the sweet taste of revenge for Saquon Barkley. God, it's got to feel good to average 10.4 yards a pop against your former team.
So he averaged 5.4 rushing yards over expected per attempt. Like that's a good
wild.
day. That's totally preposterous. He popped 3 long runs in this game, and he didn't hit any of them for a touchdown. So after the game, he was like, "I got to go back and work on that." He said it with a straight face too. I think he was. I mean,
that's serious.
Athletes are built different than us. I would have been happy after the game, and I think he was happy, but not about that. Let's actually listen to Saquon.
That was crazy. That was crazy. I mean, I've seen my jersey get burned before over on social media, but the timing of it, like I'm locked in. I'm listening to my music, and I see like the fans, and all I see is fans just pointing. And I look, and I'm like, what are they pointing at? And I see smoke, and I'm just like, my jersey getting burnt. So yeah, that was definitely different. I don't know if I ever experienced anything like that in my life, and hopefully I don't experience that again. But in that moment, I was ready for 3rd and 1. Let's just say that.
That is crazy. Oh, they showed it on the Jumbotron. Now I'm picking it out through the context clues. That's absolutely nuts. He converted
the drive into MetLife, by the way. The drive into MetLife is unique in that you go around the entire tailgate lot on the team buses. I experienced it.
That's what he's talking about.
They will flip the bird at you. You get an up close and personal look at everybody tailgating, and they know that's your bus. So they had that planned. Talk about motivation. Message to every fan. If a former player shows up and he's coming by your tailgate lot, don't burn his jersey unless you want to have a bad day.
Well, not when he's like one of the greatest, players in your history. Certainly one of the best running backs that we've seen. Rough. And yes, I mentioned Jalen Hurts. That sequence to me where he threw that touchdown was Jalen Hurts in a nutshell because he passed on a wide open receiver on 3rd down and just held the ball and threw it out of bounds. But then he hits a beautiful go ball. Only threw the ball 14 times in this game. Dexter Lawrence, shout out to him, leading the NFL in sacks as a nose tackle is just preposterous.
Get him some help.
Making a run for Defensive Player of the Year as a nose tackle on a bad team. That has happened in the NFL before. Can you name the man who did that?
Nose tackle on a bad team.
I mean, the first interior lineman I think of outside of like Aaron Donald would be like Warren Sapp, but I think we got to go back further than that.
Is it Albert Hainsworth?
It is Cortez Kennedy. I believe it was a lousy Seahawks team, but he was just so good that they gave him the award. So maybe Dexter Lawrence will get that done. Let's go to Seattle versus the Falcons. I don't think there's any Defensive Players of the Year candidates in this game. There wasn't a lot of defense, at least not for the Falcons.
3 receivers left. Geno from the shotgun. DK on the numbers. On the right side. Snap. Geno steps up, avoids one man. Lays it over the top. Walker! Touchdown! Seahawks! Ken Walker III reaching up, making a diving reception in the front corner of the end zone from 17 out. What a drive by the Seahawks. Thank you, penalty. But the Seahawks cash it in and extend their lead 23-14.
Ooh, Ken Walker. Getting it done as a receiver. My God. What an improved player. I know he was good to begin with, but to me, he is just a better player than he used to be. 34-14, Seahawks offense rolls in Atlanta. By the end of this game, Michael Penix is playing football at the national professional level here. Nick Shook. Did not expect this to be this one-sided, but it was a good day for my boy Gino, wasn't it?
Oh, you're going to love it when you take the deep dive in this game, Greg, because this is a classic Gino game. I mean, they had the ball inside of 2 minutes. There's like 8 seconds left in the clock. He drops back and fires a strike down the middle of the field to DK among a sea of Falcons for a touchdown. That makes it 17-7. He drops that dime on Kenneth Walker, who, by the way, ran a fantastic route out of the backfield. He kind of like hesitated and just shook the defender there before making that spectacular grab. And then Gino's day is basically it's done. He doesn't have to do much else because they get a strip sack on Kirk Cousins. It starts off a chain of 3 straight turnovers. Derek Hall picks it up and rumbles down the field. And Witherspoon throws a block on a lineman down the field. I think it was Caleb McGarry, and he gets in the end zone for a 64-yard fumble return touchdown. And just like that, it's 31-14, and the Falcons can say goodnight because they had nothing left to do after that except, well, Kirk had to throw, 2 more picks. One through the hands of Drake London, not his fault. Second one, definitely his fault. Everything unraveled. It was a winnable game, and it suddenly became a very unwinnable game for the Falcons.
Yeah, I should have mentioned at the top, this is our Sunday drive presented by the all-new hybrid Toyota Camry. And yeah, we only the best for an epic Gino game. And yeah, maybe this defense can improve too. I think they probably feel fortunate that the Falcons didn't run the ball as much as they could have. Their success rate was sky high. Bijan Robinson goes over 100 yards. Tyler Algier 5 for 36. And yet it was a kind of a pass happy effort by the Falcons who, week after week, I keep looking at that stat in the next gen stats, like play action. Are they doing anything with Kirk again? 3 for 4 in this game. And I think this points out kind of their limitations because the Seahawks are getting gashed by play action all season long, getting gashed by the running game, but the Falcons don't really have that club in their bag, and they couldn't go to it today.
Well, they were getting gashed in the run game. Ultimately, what you had, Nick, watching this game was defensive coordinator Eugene Cyril Smith. Like, Gino was so hot that the Falcons gave up on the run. We're in the second half, and Bijan Robinson was averaging 7 yards a carry, and Tyler Algier was averaging 9. The Falcons were running the ball well. Seahawks giving up big plays. They struggled to corral Bijan in the backfield, but ultimately, when Gino kept delivering time after time after time, the run game just went out the window, and there was that late touchdown to Drake London where the Falcons were in. They were in the game. But the Hall fumble return for the touchdown, it just all started to avalanche to the point where the Falcons could do nothing, and Scramble Kirk started throwing picks.
Yeah, and that's why I led with the Gino pass to DK, because it gave him a 10-point lead and kind of forced the Falcons to be a little bit one-dimensional. They weren't out of the halftime. They went 14 plays. Kirk goes 7 for 7. They marched down the field, relatively speaking, 14 plays, but and scoring. It's an emphatic drive. Like, they score a touchdown. I'm like, all right, we got a ball game. They're coming right back. They punch him in the mouth, and the Seahawks immediately respond and score another touchdown. They're just playing catch up the whole day before. It's a demonstration of how quickly a game can unravel too. If you turn the ball over in a back and forth affair like this, suddenly you're going to be looking up and you're going to be down by 15, 20 points, and that's what happened.
Let's listen to the Derek Hall fumble return touchdown, one of the more exciting moments of the day, and yeah, the decisive moment in this one.
Boye Mafe is in there in an inside rushing position.
Yeah, he is.
Robinson stays in the backfield for Atlanta. Cousins scrambles left side, gets hit, goes down. Mafe, ball comes out. Ball rolling, picked up far side. It's Hall down the far sidelines. He's going to score. Touchdown, Seahawks. Derek Hall on the sack by Boye Mafe.
Oh, I love that call from Steve Rabel, Kiro. And yeah, players matter. Having Boye Mafe back is kind of a big deal. Having Byron Murphy back, kind of a big deal. Draymond Jones goes for 6 pressures in this game. Leonard Williams 5, Derek Hall 7. So offensive line struggling a little bit for Atlanta. Defense hasn't been amazing all year. And then how confident can you be in your starting quarterback when he's making a sound like this before the snap? Sorry. That's Kirk Cousins. I just wanted to.
Is he saying Carl Sheffers?
No, that's
What
just
does he say?
really old school Kirk watchers will know every once in a while he just has this squeak that comes out. Let's just listen to it one more time when he's called. One more time, sorry.
So that's actually the one from Minnesota. This is the Minnesota one.
Oh, that's the Minnesota.
And then this is the one we heard this morning.
Okay.
That's what he's saying, Carl Sheffers.
So is that? I don't know. I don't know if that's intentional or what that is, but I love it.
It's like a dog toy that's squeaking when they chew on it.
Every once in a while, a voice cracks. It would happen to Tom Brady back in the day when he was calling out signals, and love that. And Michael Penix, quarterback controversy, 1 for 1, 14 yards. I'm kind of glad, Shook, that both these teams are 4-3. That feels right for them. Like 5-2 would have been over their skis. Like that long of a winning streak for this Falcons team wouldn't have felt right. A 4-game losing streak for the Seahawks wouldn't have felt right. They both feel like 4-3 teams, and they're both, at least the Seahawks are in first place. The Falcons will wait and find out about the Bucs.
Yeah, you look at the little score bug during the game, and I looked down the record, and I was like, yeah, that's about right. I mean, it's good for them to get back on the winning side of things after losing 3 straight. I don't know how much I really learned about them other than the fact that Geno continues to be good, and when he's not good, they end up losing games.
I think the thing we're going to learn is how much can Mike McDonald problem solve on defense. Like, Seahawks fans were overreacting a little too much to their struggles. Like, it's a long
they were hurt.
season. Right, and they have a little bit of a lead in the NFC West. That was the Sunday Drive presented by the all-new hybrid Toyota Camry. Whatever your vibe, it's a Camry vibe. Learn more at toyota.com/Camry, and we've reached the portion of the show where Nick Shook has to talk about the Cleveland Browns.
1:40 left in the third. It's third down for the Bengals. Third down and 4. Burrow catches the shotgun snap, throws, caught by Higgins, running to the 10, 5, touchdown! Bengals, T. Higgins, high-stepping it into the end zone, and now he tosses the ball high into the air as he looks into the dog pound after that touchdown grab.
That was Dan Horde and Dave Lapham of WCKY. Yeah, Lapham might be passing Scott Zolak as the best. Yeah! Go! He's got him. It's like way less obnoxious. T. Higgins taking it in. T. Higgins has quietly been awesome this year. He is back to 2022 T. Higgins. They only scored 14 points on offense, but you get a opening kickoff return for a touchdown, and usually you win the game, and the Bengals did. Browns get a late touchdown from their third quarterback to play today, Jameis Winston. And yeah, let's start there because that's ultimately the story of the day. Nick Shook, the Cleveland Browns lost their starting quarterback, Deshaun Watson, to an Achilles injury, appears to be a torn Achilles, and it's hard not to think about what this all means for him and the team moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, we'll learn that over time because there's a lot of money and contract situation, everything else, a lot of decisions to be made. But in the short term, it was, all right, well, we've talked about Deshaun Watson, and his place in this offense being the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. Now he's out. Now let's see what they look like. And for a moment, Dorian Thompson-Robinson gave him a little bit of life. He took off a couple times with some read options and everything else. But he ends up getting hurt too, and Jameis Winston comes in. The offense is still not a good operation. Nick Chubb came back, scored a touchdown. That was great, but overall, still not a good group. One cool nugget from research, though, because it's not often that you see 3 quarterbacks attempt this many passes in a game. So according to NFL research, the Browns are the first team to have 3 different players have 10-plus pass attempts in a game since the Chiefs in Week 7 of 2008. Could you guess those 3 quarterbacks, guys?
Okay, is Tyler Thigpen one of them?
Yes.
Is Brody Croyle one of them?
Yes.
Holy cow.
Can we do this?
Damon Heward?
2 for 2. Oh, he nailed it. All 3. Let's
Holy
go.
Cow. I can't believe we did that.
That's huge.
Let's go. We just won the Super Bowl. Because I wouldn't have gotten Croyle. I wouldn't have.
Out of his chair.
I wouldn't
Rainbow
have.
City, Alabama's own Brody Croyle.
I wouldn't have gotten Croyle. But my teammate picked me up, and then I closed that down with Damon Heward. Holy shit.
Greg is juiced up right now.
Oh, nothing makes me happier than getting some.
That's the brightest
trivia.
spot about the Browns, by the way. Their defense is still solid, but they're asked to do too much. Joe Burrow and the offense didn't score anything in the first half. Obviously, he runs into issues against this Browns defense, but they figured out in the second half. Him and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, their rapport is almost unmatched in the NFL, and it was too much for the Browns to be able to stop in the second half. The Bengals, man, 1-2 in a row. Let's go, getting back in the right way.
I'm still trying to come down from what just took place here, although I'm
sweating a little bit.
It is reminding me of the worst quarterback matchup I've ever seen, maybe the worst game of all time, which was, I think that season, Brody Croyle versus Kellen Clemens of the Jets, week 16. Sickos, look up the box score.
It was weak, all right.
Of that game, and yeah, let's just talk Watson. So the crowd cheers a little. So the players were, Myles Garrett and Jameis Winston were upset after the game. Was this something where they're talking about like a small amount of fans cheered, or was it hard to tell on the television broadcast, Nick?
Yeah, it was kind of hard to tell. The audio at that stadium's never been good on TV.
Okay.
Unless you want to hear people banging on aluminum siding, because that happens on third
So,
all the time.
so some fans are happy when he gets hurt, which, it doesn't surprise me. And he's crying going off the field. And I actually thought there was a good chance this was going to be his last start ever for the Browns. And extrapolating that forward, I actually thought there was an outside chance this will be his last time he ever plays in the NFL. Because I think there's a chance, if he was healthy, that when he got benched, that they're not going back to him ever. And if you just ignore the contract, I don't see another team signing him in the future, even for like $1 million. It's possible, but I don't. If I had to guess, I was leaning on that it was probably going to happen soon, that he would get benched. And now, one of the reasons I felt even stronger about that was what people were mad about, including Patrick. I disagree with you on this, Patrick, that they looked bad because they had Dorian Thompson-Robinson as the backup quarterback this game, and then he had to go in and play. For what this could be a wrong evaluation, but I actually thought them making DTR the backup was a sign that Watson was on a short leash, because DTR was actually the guy they wanted to see all along. And whether they're right or wrong about that, I don't know. But Stefanski's been pretty good with the backup quarterback, so I'm not going to have like a hot take about that. So when I saw DTR was the backup, I was like, oh, he's going to get benched this game if he doesn't play well. And then, what happened.
Well, I think the reason that people would instantly believe that was because they've been kind of making a futile effort on offense for multiple weeks with Deshaun Watson in quarterback. I don't know that the decision-making at the quarterback position in Cleveland is getting a whole lot of trust globally right now because of that. And so I've seen Jameis Winston play a lot of football. I think it's hard to get Joe Flacco leading this team down the stretch kind of out of your mind, and Jameis falls into that mold. But ultimately, it's not a good team. They're 1-6.
Yep.
They haven't had both of their tackles play in a game all season long. Still to this point, it's the positive is Nick Chubb is finally back. He's able to get in the end zone today. That was probably the best Browns drive of the game, where DTR comes in relief of Deshaun Watson. Nick Chubb gets in the end zone there, but it's. I think the skepticism about the decision making is just a view of the way people see the decision making of the franchise, including bringing Deshaun Watson in the first.
Right, and I almost wonder if him getting hurt, it's not going to let them off the hook, but it just makes the decision for them, and it makes people forget that this is Andrew Berry who did this. Like, this was the worst move in the history of the NFL, like without any question. It was that bad to begin with, and I was very strong about it on the show because of everything that Deshaun Watson did off the field, and that's why everyone's saying about the Jameis Winston standing up for his teammate and Myles Garrett standing up for his teammate after the game. It's like, oh, they really spoke truth here, and this is powerful words, and I don't buy it, because the indignation that they have in this moment about that small group of fans or whatever is so much stronger than anything they ever said about all the women that Deshaun Watson was accused of sexually assaulting, or certainly how the organization brought him in, or anything. Like, so I don't need to hear it. You can feel that And you can say whatever, you can say your truth, but I don't need to hear members of the media saying like, oh, this is powerful stuff on a human level. It's like, no, like just miss me with it, because they made a deal with the devil and they're paying for it. And the injury, put that to the side. That sort of has nothing to do with it in this case to me, because this decision was over with, like, as a complete and utter failure that normally would get everyone fired. Maybe we don't know who actually made that decision, and maybe that changes. And now the Browns just are going to move forward in whatever way that is. And I think it's going to be a way where they get this like cap space through insurance money potentially, and they figure out a way to maybe trade him to another team and give away draft picks. And it's
like
just
a Brock Osweiler
like
thing.
a Brock Osweiler thing. Who knows in the future, but that's all in the future. For now, they got to live through this, what's been a miserable season. Chuck.
Yeah, I mean, they're not a good team. Like Patrick said, they're not a good team. They're especially not a good offense. Jerry Jeudy threw his helmet at the bench after a possession today, and that was after Watson was out. We've talked about this for weeks. This is nothing new. It will be interesting to see if it ends up being Jameis in that job and whether they can do anything, because the best they've looked all year offensively is when Jameis has been on the field in that small sample size. But yes, you're right.
He's the only healthy guy anyways. DTR had 24 throws with 2 interceptions and 82 yards. So that was an unmitigated disaster for the most part. He was their leading rusher. Nick Chubb, got the touchdown, but didn't do a lot on the ground. 11 for 22 in his first game back. Bengals fans are probably like, you're not giving us any love. It was an ugly game. You got Higgins and Chase. You only scored 14 points in offense. Your defense has showed, like the Eagles the last couple of weeks, that they can really stand up against lower tier offenses, and that's a good sign. And maybe it's something to build off. Sam Hubbard certainly has played better, but you had 12 first downs, so and you lost Orlando Brown to an injury. So there's some concern there. I just thought the Watson thing ultimately was the bigger story coming out of this game. And the Bengals, look, you got your win. You're 3-4. You are back in the mix. If you look at their schedule, they got a chance to go on a little run. I think they get the Eagles next. That'll be interesting. Let's just, since that was a wholly negative recap here, let's listen to our friend Andrew Siciliano and what was the nicest moment here for the Browns today.
It is 4th down. DTR is the quarterback. Browns going to go with the I again. Swaim, the tight end, is the up back. Nick Chubb dots the I. Pitch left. Nick Chubb running left. Nick Chubb is in! Touchdown! Nicholas Jamal Chubb. Welcome back, and welcome back to the end zone.
Awesome call there by Andrew on WKRK. And yeah, one other small injury. Geno Stone of the Bengals got hurt late in this game, so that's something to watch in their secondary. Let's go to another one-sided game. Let's go to Buffalo.
2nd and 10 from the 12. Play clock down to 5. Allen in the shotgun takes the snap. Blitz coming. Fires over the middle for Amari Super Cooper for a 12-yard touchdown reception.
Yes, Amari Cooper is a member of the Buffalo Bills, and he's out here scoring touchdowns. His first ever catch as a Buffalo Bill is a touchdown. That was Chris Brown of WGR. What if I told you that the Tennessee Titans were ahead 10-0 in this game? What if I told you Eric Roberts, our producer, was sweating it out here at halftime? They were trailing 10-7. And then what if I told you the Buffalo Bills looked like the Super Bowl contenders that they are after halftime and absolutely bum rushed this Titans team? It was like they just flipped a switch and started trying. The yardage in the second half at one point was 216-10. And yeah, Amari Cooper had a drop early, Nick, and it was reminding me of his Browns days. Like a drive ended on a bad Cooper drop, and I was like, uh-oh. But rest of the game, 4 for 66, including a couple really nice grabs, including one kind of behind his body, nice hands catch. And yeah, the Bills offense was rolling against what had been a really good Titans defense in the first half and really the most of this season.
Yeah, and a quick turnaround on a nickname, too. Amari Cooper's been a Bill for less than a week, and he's already Super Cooper. So hat tip to you guys, too. I mean, this is what the Bills can do. It is impressive that it came against this Titans defense because that's been their strength all year. While their offense has struggled, no matter who's playing quarterback, their defense has been very consistent. So to get blasted like that in the second half, is very disappointing. But then again, this is a team that's 1-5. And when stacked up against Super Bowl contenders, push usually comes to shove and the better team emerges. And that's kind of what we saw from today from Josh Allen. You love it statistically. 21 of 33, 323, 2 touchdowns. All right, Josh, back on the horse. Give me a reason to move you up the QB index this week.
He was fine. He was great in the second half. They started the game with 3 straight 3-and-outs. They were disjointed where even when he was protected well, he wasn't finding open receivers. So they punted 5 out of 6 drives in the first half, and the only offense they were really getting were from these kind of scramble drill plays to Keon Coleman, which worked all day.
Ultimately, they had those 3-and-outs. Nothing was going on, and then Keon Coleman shakes loose where the Titans defense just loses track of him and get 40 yards. James Cook scores on the next play, and then Buffalo proceeds to score every score for the remainder of the game. It was 34 unanswered points.
Wow.
Down 10-0 to winning 34-10, where you see the promise of Amari Cooper's route running on the touchdown. It kind of frees Keon up to do the things that Keon kind of excels at, and where it's not Keon outside having to get open against the one. And versus a good opportunity against the Titans team that's playing their backup quarterback. I don't know. You can make the case that Mason Rudolph might give the team a better chance to win.
I would make that case.
Than Will Levis. Okay, the case has been made. But regardless, a good opportunity to work Amari Cooper in, and the results have us feeling a whole lot better about the Buffalo.
Yeah, Levis was a kind of surprise late week, inactive. I watched that Titans game later in the week, and that was a cry for help from Levis. Now, he might have been playing hurt with the shoulder injury, and that was part of it, but it was one of the worst games I've seen by any quarterback all season. And Rudolph was better for them and kind of avoided making the mistakes that would kill you. He did have an interception, but their offensive line was terrible. So I'm not putting it too much on him or Tony Pollard. I swear Tony Pollard's playing like a Pro Bowler.
Yeah.
Maybe the best that Tony Pollard's ever played, and then that results in 16 for 61. The offensive line was just dominated in this game. And that's what the Bills will give you. People are so caught up on the wide receivers, but their defensive line is winning week after week. Greg Rousseau had 6 quarterback hits in this game. That's the most of any player in any game all season. He was awesome. A.J. Epinesa was awesome. Ed Oliver's playing well. And then the offensive line is protecting Josh Allen against a pretty good pass rush, tons of time, giving him time to find Dalton Kincaid down the field. Khalil Shakir plays well. I thought it was really impressive. One thing to keep an eye on is DeAndre Hopkins only had 1 catch for -2 yards and was out late in this game. He said it was soreness. He's getting talked about as a trade candidate. I don't know. I was kind of wondering.
That feels strong. I don't know if they're going to get much
was kind of
back,
wondering here. It was like a
likely.
veteran thing where the game was over and they were just kind of sitting him and, take him out at the end of the game. And, yeah, it's ugly. We'll see if Rudolph gets another start. Not sure if it matters too much. By the way, Nick Folk has hit 80 straight kicks under 40 yards. They said that in the game, and I was like, wait, what? He's hit 80 straight field goals under 40 yards? 80! That's 240 points. How many years is that over? That's just an amazing feat by Nick Folk. So I just wanted to give
shout out to Nick Folk.
Him a little bit of love. Bills at 5-2, and right now in control of the AFC East. We'll take a quick break, and we're going to go to the NFC East and talk about a team that's control of that division too, right after the break.
Third and 9 at the 25-yard line. Sanders to the left of Dalton. Free rusher coming off the edge. Throws it. Oh! Picked off. Pinky Luvu. One man to beat. He does. Streaking down the sideline. 30, 20, 10, 5. Touchdown. Touchdown, Washington. Unbelievable.
That was Dante Fowler on the 67-yard interception return. Bram Weinstein, WBIG. The Commanders put it on the Panthers, 40-7. Not shocking, I guess, knowing these two teams, but a little shocking that Jaden Daniels was only in this game for one drive, a field goal drive, left with a rib injury. They said they'll do further tests, but there's been multiple reports, including from our Cam Wolf at NFL Network, that it's nothing serious. So a rare game, Shook, where your franchise quarterback gets hurt and you can still enjoy yourself.
And Cliff Kingsbury's offense proves to be quarterback proof. Let's go down the drive chart.
Okay.
First drive, punt, 3 and out, right? Then we go touchdown, field goal, touchdown, touchdown, field goal, end of game. Marcus Mariota came in fantastic as a veteran backup, as he should. He was improvising. He was dotting the field with throws. They were running the ball with authority with Brian Robinson. They couldn't be stopped. They were on fire, and it helps when you pick off Andy Dalton twice in the first quarter and bury the Panthers before they even have a chance to get out of bed.
Wow. Mariota in this game, nice spot for him. I mean, you get to play against the Panthers, sure, but to go 7 for 9 for 127 yards on throws, I think it was over 15 yards or over 10 yards. So these weren't just
not dinking and dunking.
Dinks and dunks. You're right about it being quarterback proof. Like I saw, like early in this game, Terry McLaurin had 1 for 3 yards about halfway through the second quarter, and the score is already 20-0 at that point. And I'm thinking, oh, I made a mistake starting Scary Terry. Today in fantasy, he's going to end with 1 catch for 3 yards because they're just going to run the ball the rest of the game. But no, he ends up with 6 for 98. And Mariota, and they were throwing the ball the whole game. I appreciate it. Thank you, Cliff Kingsbury. Thank you, Marcus Mariota.
Put on the gas all game, baby, because they don't stop. Doesn't matter if, Jaden Daniels is in or Marcus Mariota's in or if they're up by 30 points. Does not matter. In fact, at one point, the broadcast team was like, hey, Marcus got to be a little careful here. We don't know if Jaden Daniels is going to be out multiple weeks. He can't be taking hits like this because he's scrambling too and all over the field. It was probably
Marcus Mariota has never been careful, and he never will be careful.
Never.
No, he won't. This is the guy
happen.
who caught his own. This is the guy who caught his own pass and dove for the pylon for a touchdown. This guy does not know how to be careful.
And got in. When it works.
Yeah, and got in. Yeah, he got in. Yeah, most lopsided game I think I've seen all year. The Panthers are a bad football team. They are undoubtedly the worst football team in the NFL. And I'm kind of curious about what their plan is with Bryce Young because they were down by so much. You thought, well, late third quarter, put him in. They put him in for the last drive with like 3.5 minutes left. He finished 2 for 2 for -4 yards. That's not going to help the kid. So I don't know what's going on there, but they're not a good football team. We already knew that.
They said they would keep playing Andy Dalton. What do you think?
Yes.
At a certain point, help your football team. Like playing Andy Dalton right now, does that get any part of the best case scenario considering the Panthers are at 1-6? Get Bryce Young some good reps, and if you don't want Bryce Young to be a part of your program anymore, try to get some value and demonstrate value for Bryce Young and get him somewhere else.
Well, the problem with that is thinking that any of these quarterbacks could succeed. This is just mistake after mistake after mistake in terms of personnel and switching coaches and like Andy Dalton's 11 for 90, 16 for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns, a QBR of 3. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. I mean, they can't do anything. So why would it work with? It's not going to work with either.
That's what I'm saying. It's not working. Do we need to see more Andy Dalton? Is this
no? They'll go back.
We need to evaluate Andy Dalton's performance in this offense where you're playing up against a Marcus Mariota led Commanders team where we just talk like Marcus is high-fiving, celebrating up and down the field. He's almost leading the team in carries. He's got 1 less carry than Brian Robinson Jr. Ultimately, at the end of the game, finishes with 11. B-Rob had 12. But I'm not sure what we're getting and what the value is.
None. I mean, this team stinks. They've been outscored 257-96. So you feel for Dave Canales, but you also have to recognize like he's not doing a good job. That the situation and the structure and everything that they've set up, that they decided to go with continuity in their front office. And, you have to look at the top of like how an organization gets to this level. And as Joe Person writes every week for The Athletic, there is no rock bottom. Like people like to say, oh, this is rock bottom. It's like, no, just wait till next week. Right. And what
they exist in rock bottom. Like,
right. And Washington is an example of like how an organization can change on a dime like that if you get the quarterback pick right, along with a coaching staff. And look, they've done a good job. Their defense, I know it's been beating up on bad offenses for the most part, although they did pretty well against the Cardinals, who are solid. Their defense has really improved the last 3 weeks. It's a fun matchup next week. Caleb Williams. We'll see if Jaden Daniels is back for that game. Let's listen to the good vibes with Dan Quinn in that locker room.
We got stronger this week. All right, we said we had to. We find those. edges, all right, to say, can we find the next gear? And you did that tonight, man. So you guys are tough. One guy set it off today, all right? Pick 6.
That is
a custom celebration for Frankie Louvu.
And it's cool because Dante Fowler wears 6 and got a pick 6. That's fun.
There we go. Commander Social right there. Appreciate the footage. I watch a lot of these locker room, and I just think, I mean, every winning locker room's happy, but I think the Commanders are the happiest. They have the best vibes right now. They are winning the vibe off. Let's go to London, where good vibes in the crowd. Before the game, not such great vibes for these two teams.
Huge booming punt all the way down to the 4 for Parker Washington, but he gets out to the 10, to the 15, he's got blockers, 25, 30, 40, 50, it's only the punter there, he's going to go all the way, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown Jacksonville as he stops at the end zone, falls backwards into it, and that's a huge, huge play in terms of the momentum of this game. Parker Washington taking it all the way from the 4-yard line, 96 yards for the Jacksonville Jaguars touchdown.
Oh, yeah, Parker Washington, thank you for giving us a highlight. Thank you for giving us the first special teams touchdown in London games history. And thank you to Will Gavin of TalkSport. Nay, Will Gavin of NFL Daily, last Sunday's recap show. He did a bang-up job, and now he's doing play-by-play over there. Yes, the London games are over for the year, and they were treated to an excellent performance from their hometown Jaguars, 32-16 in this matchup. Jaguars win. We got some good quarterback play. We got some points. We got a long touchdown. We got a Will Gavin radio call. What else could we ask for, Nick Shuck?
Actually, honestly, I don't think anything. I think it was about as perfect. Well, unless you're a Patriots fan.
Right, a closer game, better teams. But I'm saying in the situation we were given, I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10.
Something about the Will Gavin call there, just like it was like music to my ears. It was almost like poetry. And Parker Washington is the perfect name for a London game. It was fantastic.
Fielding at punt on the 4-yard line, watching as I'm getting ready for work, I'm like, because the game starts with a long Patriots drive, ultimately concluding in a Jermichael Hasty touchdown, and I'm thinking, this is the Jags. This is the 2024 Jacksonville Jaguars. And I was just so ready for disappointment at every available opportunity. And Parker Washington goes and catches that ball at the 4. I'm like, oh, here comes a muff or something. The teammate's gonna run into him, the ball's gonna pop out, Patriots gonna score. No, not today. Today was a day for the Jags and a lot of success. Parker Washington emblematic of that, and also a nice game from Brian Thomas Jr. as well. Good to see good Jags. Congratulations, Doug Peterson.
Yes, Doug Peterson with that NFL Network halftime interview with Steve Weish, back-to-back weeks, and really their trip could be told by those two interviews. The first one, I heard someone say, like, people don't need to worry about, man, who was it, that the Jags quitting on him? They got to worry about Doug quitting on the Jags. He seems sick of his players last week and in general. And this week, though, after second quarter where, I think they put up 24 points in the second quarter after falling down 10-0. They needed that. And you mentioned it. The Patriots started this game looking very good on offense. 2 long drives for 10 points. They get the 10-0 lead. But like it's been the rest of the year, it's not one thing for the Patriots. Everything's bad. Now their quarterback's pretty good. Drake May's playing well. But their defense is one of, if not the league's worst. Their special teams are terrible. You just saw it. And in the secondary, I just want to give some love to Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, him getting open against Christian Gonzalez and the late hands contested catch for a big play down the field, then just a fantastic route where I swear Gonzalez didn't play these 2 plays badly. He was in good position, and good offense just beats good defense sometimes, and a great 2-point conversion. He finishes 5 for 89 for a touchdown. He is legit. Tank Bigsby ran hard as hell, gets 118 yards for 2 touchdowns, and Trevor Lawrence played awesome, led the NFL in EPA on this Sunday, And so, yeah, they need to be an offense-first team, Shook, and they were. They really dominated the game when they had the ball. They just did not let the Patriots defense get off the field.
Yeah, I think they had a stretch in the second half where they ran the ball like almost 20 straight times.
It's
I mean,
crazy.
that is an emphatic run right there. Tank Bigsby, by the way, we lose sight of the players who are performing well on bad teams, right? And the Jaguars at 2-5 still qualify as a bad team. But you have Brian Thomas. He's gotten the traction because he's a rookie receiver. He's the latest example of a receiver that's almost a finished product coming out of college. That's just the generation that we're dealing with now at receiver. But Tank Bigsby's been playing well all year. I mean, he's been outperforming Travis Etienne. Etienne doesn't go today. It's Tank's time to shine, and he shines on the international stage. So let's give him a little tip of the cap. People, pay attention to him. If you're playing fantasy, pick him up.
Right. It almost could have been worse in this game. They on that drive where they just kept running and running and running, they ran one too many times and got stopped on 4th and goal inside the 5. And so the Patriots had a little bit of life, and Drake May led them on a scoring drive. My Drake May review, he's the only good thing about this team. I think this game was different where the highs weren't as high and the lows weren't as low, and he just, for the most part, made good decisions, was inaccurate a couple times, could have been picked off once or twice, and then people, the box score wouldn't look as good. But overall, he has 0 running game. Ramondre goes 7 for 18, 0 schematic help, no offensive line help, and his defense is terrible. So I have major doubts about this coaching staff, and Gerard Mayo has major doubts just about everything right now.
What I would say is, look, we're a soft football team across the board. We talk about what makes a tough football team. That's being able to run the ball, that's being able to stop the run, and that's being able to cover kicks, and we did none of those today. They controlled the ball for most of the day. Their run game averaged over 4.5 yards a carry. Our run game, not sure what the average was, but it wasn't good.
No, it was not. It was 2.5, by the way, and it would have been a lot lower if not for Drake May's couple scrambles. Gerard Mayo gets mad, and I like that he just speaks his mind and says what he says. But when he says we're sloppy, and there was a ton of offensive pre-snap penalties, and when he says we're soft, he's saying I'm soft, I'm sloppy, because that's what he's coaching right now. They are not a well-coached team. Let's go to Indianapolis, where they couldn't open the dome on a beautiful day. Technical difficulties for the second time this year. Let's get that cleaned up, Colts, but at least they cleaned up their defense.
9:15 and counting here in the third quarter. Richardson out of the gun, ball in the far hash. 2 receivers go to the left, 1 goes to the right. Richardson cuts it right up the middle, touchdown! The Red Sea parted, and it's Tyler Goodson right up the gut from 7 yards away. Touchdown! INDY. It's 10-9 on the Ruoff Mortgage scoreboard.
WFNI Matt Taylor. Every time I look up the last 3 weeks, Tyler Goodson's making a play. He's a player.
Got juice.
Got a little bit of juice.
More than Trey Sermon.
Yep.
Colts get another win without Jonathan Taylor, this time with Anthony Richardson, 16-10. Patrick, you liked my theory. This was a big game in the AFC because these are 2 teams that I don't think have played really well, and one of them was going to come out of this game in good shape playoff-wise, and the Colts have a winning record, even if it hasn't been pretty.
And it holds true. It holds true, and after the game, you look at the way that things line up where Anthony Richardson did not have a great game. He had a fumble in the red zone. Both of these teams committed a litany of turnovers, bad turnovers. There was a fullback fumble that came out from, I'm blanking on the Finns. Alec Ingold had a fumble that got punched out by the Colts defense. Richardson had his bad one, but ultimately kicks. Matt Gay hit a 52-yarder to go in to the break. Jason Sanders had one slide off to the edge, and ultimately that turns out to be the difference. The Anthony Richardson solid in the run game as well today. Wound up being the leading rusher, got 56 yards on 14 carries. But it was one of those type scattershot games where the Colts kind of showed their weaknesses, and a weak team going up against a Tua-led Dolphins team. This is easy Finn's win. The win that we've seen the past few years. But without even Tyler Huntley, because Tim Boyle's in this game late, Shook. This is what we get from Miami.
Yeah, it was a little concerning from a Colts perspective, just because I'm sitting here thinking, look, you're playing Tyler Huntley and Tim Boyle, and you can only muster this. This Miami defense is not that good. What is going on with this offense, Anthony Richardson? He finished his 10 for 24 for 129, but you added, the 56 yards on the ground. So he did his part. It's just that he comes back from missing a couple of weeks, and they're not the same well-oiled machine they were with Joe Flacco, at least through the air. But it's still a hard-earned win because you hold the opposition to 10 points. Your defense has given up massive sums in many games this year, including that loss to Jacksonville. So it's a small victory on top of the actual victory. From a Dolphins perspective, you get, almost 200 rushing yards between the combination of Achane, Mostert, Jalen Wright, and then another 20 from Huntley before he leaves. And yet you still only get 10 points. Like, I feel very bad for Dolphins fans right now because they are just stuck in this waiting game, waiting to see when and if and when Tua comes back. And until then, they're just not a high potential offense.
Well, they're only going to wait another week according to expectations. He's eligible to come off IR next week.
Yep.
Diana Rossini reported that the expectation was he was going to play next week. And Mike McDaniel's kind of telegraphed that. I have a missive from the future, Nick. Tua's not saving this team. This team has so many problems. I'm not buying that Tua is going to Mike McDaniel's not coaching this team well at all. The fact that going to the backup quarterback causes your passing game to collapse this much, I don't think Tua is going to save it. It'll be significantly better, but they need it to be great or even good, and I have doubts about that. Any system where Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill go 2 for 19 combined. Tyreek Hill didn't have a catch in this game until there was 2 minutes left. I think they're going to have issues. And the offensive line is one of the reasons why the backup quarterbacks are struggling so much. It's not a well-run, well-coached team. I know the defense has been a little better the last couple weeks, but I don't know, man. OBJ comes out there, has a couple targets, has a drop. He made a little cameo. Something's off with this team. Any other coach, I think, would be getting on if their backup quarterbacks were this bad. It shouldn't be this big of a cliff, right?
No. Every time I see a shot of Mike McDaniel on the sideline, he just looks lost. He looks like he doesn't know where he is, or he doesn't want to be there if he knows where he is.
I saw him laughing with Tyreek Hill and Waddle. They actually were in a good mood. At that point, they were winning the game. They were up 10-3 in this game. And they were all kind of laughing. And at that point, Waddle and Hill, I think, had no catches. So I was like, what are they laughing about? Are they laughing about how we our quarterbacks can't get us the ball? That would be my guess.
Yeah, maybe it's Tim Boyle. They're looking over. It's well, yeah, that's a rough one for Tim. How's he still here? There's so many different ways that you could take the Miami Dolphins offense. It wasn't good against better teams in the stretch where Tua was there. Now that I do think the difference is at least 2 touchdowns in this game. Right.
Sure. It would have helped.
At the very least.
It would have helped.
In this game. But yeah, there's overall problems and teams go through lulls. We've seen contenders go through lulls. The Bills just went and got Amari Cooper in the middle of one of their lulls and saw them explode out of that.
Their season's been a lull though. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to him returning because it gives us another team. Otherwise this team is just a dead team walking. Devon Achane after the game. And yes, they started running the ball better last week, so that's a really good sign. Devon Achane said after the game, it's not like teams are better than us. All these losses we're losing are 1-score games. No, you got
at some point you gotta.
But no, wait, no. But it's actually just factually completely untrue. They lost 31-10 to the Bills, 24-3 to the Seahawks, and 31-12 to the Titans. So literally, this was their first time that they had a 1-score loss. They've gotten crushed every week. They've been one of the worst teams in the league. So maybe they're lucky to be 2-4. Their season is not quite over. That is true as well of the winner of the SoFi Bowl. Yes, it's Raiders. Rams, one of these teams needed to get a W and keep their season alive.
1:28 on the clock. No timeouts remaining for the visitors. Snap back. Rams coming after them. Minshew to his end zone. Now floods right. Points downfield. Throws against his body. It's intercepted. Taken away again at the 30. This game is over. Jalen McCullough calls game.
Love that call from my friend JB Long on KSPN. JB Long going to be joining me on the TNF recap this week. Vikings, Rams. So check that out later in the week. And that game's going to mean a little bit more for the Rams because they got their second win of the year, 20-15. It was fitting, Patrick, that the defense did it because this was a rare Rams win that was led by the defense. They got stops all over the place. The 20 points that the Rams scored on offense were all off turnovers that the Rams defense created.
And coming into the game, I'm thinking Jared Verse is going to have a great game. We were all celebrating and wide-eyed at the Aiden O'Connell stat about 0 scramble yards in his entire career. But then Aiden O'Connell's knocked out of the game. So in comes Gardner Minshew, and you're like, oh, got some more mobility back there. Jared Verse had 9 pressures in this game on 36 pass rushes. He was dominant. Minshew did the Minshew thing where now you've got this injury to Aiden O'Connell. A couple of Watoti candidates were added to the list this week.
Watoti is the worst throw of the year, just to be clear. But yes, Gardner Minshew's first interception was his specialty, the combination of awful decision and awful execution.
Yeah, roll into the sideline. You're going to have to either put that ball in the stands or throw it in a very small spot. He instead elects to throw it directly to the defender, which is now something that's happened twice on the season for Gardner Minshew. The other applicant was Andy Dalton today. But just a rough game where you think the Rams have this game in the bag, but some late effort from Alexander Mattison and Brock Bowers, who is essentially this entire offense. 10 catches for 94 yards, doing all he can with not a lot around him, including at the quarterback position, either one of them, sure.
Yeah, it's I swear every time I watch the Raiders, I just realize that Alexander Mattison and Brock Bowers are the only things that are worth watching offensively, especially now that Devontae Adams is gone. I mean,
That's
the
being
Minshew
kind
review,
to Alexander Madison. That's like no one said anything that nice about Alexander Madison. Wow, he's fine. I just mean like I'm not like getting off my couch. Sorry, Nick. For
that's how low they are. That's
Yeah.
how bad this offense is, especially after losing Devontae Adams. You just don't have a lot of options, and especially the complete instability at quarterback. So it was interesting to see how they'd match up against this team. And you're right, Patrick. I've loved Jared Verse since he was at Florida State. I thought they had a steal of a pick in him when they got him in the draft, and he balls out today. He's been having a pretty good year overall. But in this matchup, you're looking at the Rams, who also lack talent at receiver still. And they have to claw their way into this game or to be able to win this game. I mean, you finish the Raiders turn the ball over 4 times and you'll win by 5 points, and it comes down to a pick at the end of the game. I mean, just the state of both these teams.
Yeah, that's a good call. Stafford only ends up with 154 yards in this game. He has an interception. Minshew ends up with 154 yards on 34 attempts and 3 interceptions. One of the worst stat lines of the year. Brock Bowers is the best tight end in the league. I just believe it. At least just receiving tight end. I don't know if you want to he doesn't block as much. I don't know. But I think he's that good. He's that talented. Love watching this kid play. And I did get some notes from Jordan Rodriguez, who was at this game. Obviously, she noted the changes they've made in the secondary for the Rams have really paid off. They've got Cam Curl closer to the line of scrimmage. They've got Quentin Lake is now playing there, and it's kind of lining everyone up, and it's helping the communication. Darius Williams, Kobe Durant had a monster game here. So they've been way more cohesive. And yes, it was against the Raiders, but they did it against the Packers too, and they looked like they were figuring it out then. So I think the offense, though, she says it's not just about the injuries. They're missing a lot of assignments, and Cooper Kupp is expected to return on Thursday, and so that's going to help. But in her opinion, Cooper Kupp is not going to just fix all the issues. They are having a lot of problems, and you're shaking your head, Nick Shook. Offensively, they're not where they were a year ago. It's really Kyren Williams, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, even Stafford in the last couple of weeks has tried his best to throw them to victory or throw them into a competitive situation. And, he threw a pick today, and more often than not, it's kind of burned him in the last few weeks. And you look at them overall and you think, well, injuries and everything, they kind of look like a bad football team with a good quarterback who's kind of doing too much to try to keep them alive. Right. So it's good to see them win this game, but I really need them to support him a little bit better so that he doesn't have to play hero ball every week.
Right. Their defense really carried the day today, gets them to 2-4 and gets them at least trying to stay relevant ahead of this trade deadline. They're an interesting team to watch. There are some reports that Kupp could be available. That would be interesting. That they're a team certainly that would think about it. It's a big game for them Thursday night against the Vikings. And yes, Jordan points out that Stafford might be playing his way off of QB Island, but he's got one more game before we vote again. Great performance today by Patrick Claybon, but most importantly, great performance by Patrick's kids who are back in the control room.
Extended scream time.
They're doing great.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
We got a Daddy is Amazing.
Oh.
There's a lot of buttons back here. They are in awe of the studio.
It's the upset of the year that none of those buttons have been not just pressed, but smashed, especially by the big.
No sticky buttons. They've been awesome.
I love it. And thanks to Patrick for for showing
Thanks
up
to
for
you
work
guys.
when no childcare help tonight. Angel City's playing, and you're in the studio, so I appreciate you. And speaking of kids, actually, that reminds me, we were doing the Lions game earlier, and I was gonna play a message I got from Walker, just unprompted. He sent me a voice memo during the game, so let's see what he had to say.
Oh.
Jameer gets 100 to David Montgomery. Jameer Gibbs, touchdown! In your face!
Okay, yeah. He sent about 4 more of those because he has Jameer Gibbs on his fantasy team, and I was going up against Jameer Gibbs, and he was enjoying
rubbing it in.
that performance. It wasn't my team he was going against, but he knew what he was doing. He loves to rub it in, and we're gonna take
From Walker.
All right, so we're gonna say goodbye to the Claybons, and we're gonna finish off this show with a little Sunday Night Football. Shook, stick around.
Wilson gets the snap. Looking, firing, has Jefferson, touchdown, Pittsburgh Steelers.
And that's what you wanted to see. That is just a great throw, a great confident throw by a quarterback. And I'm not disabusing anything that Justin Fields has done, but that's a solid out pattern to Jefferson, and what a great catch, and what a nice exclamation point on it.
That was the exclamation point on a 37-15 Steelers victory on Sunday Night Football. Hell, they added another exclamation point. Give it the double slammer later in the game. Najee Harris got in 2. A second half to remember in a blowout victory for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Shook, and didn't expect the score when it was 15-6 and the Jets had the ball with 1 minute left in the second quarter, but that's what happens when you go to Acrisure in the middle of the fall.
When you go to Mr. Unlimited.
There you go.
And he drops 31 straight on you. The Steelers offense humming for the most part. He's dropping dimes all over the place with the touch pass that, not to take away from anything from Justin Fields, just like you heard on the call, but I don't know if there's a couple of throws that Russell made that Justin was able to throw. That's what he brings to the offense. They get it done in the red zone. They add the capper at the end. Tell you what, those who criticize this switch, myself included, well, we're eating a little bit of crow. It's only one game, but we are eating a little bit of crow because they looked real good on offense tonight.
Yeah, it was a different Steelers offense, over 400 yards, the top 32 points for the second week in a row. First time they've done that without Ben Roethlisberger at quarterback since Cordell Stewart back in the day. Look, I don't think we need to overreact. Russell Wilson played well in the second half. I thought his biggest completions weren't on great throws, a couple underthrown passes where Pickens comes back for the ball. Freiermuth has an insane one-handed catch. Calvin Austin makes a great catch. The offense was just better overall. The offensive line was good. Najee Harris ends up getting 102 yards. Jaylen Warren makes positive plays for seemingly the first time all season. Maybe he's getting healthy. And yeah, as Chris Collinsworth pointed out late in the game, they just got a little more vertical and everyone stepped up. Russell Wilson started the game so poorly, the crowd was booing him out of the stadium after 4 or 5 drives. It's crazy how quickly this changes, and that's why I go back to that 15-6 score late in the first half. I'm not going to kill Aaron Rodgers for the throw that Beanie Bishop picked off. It was a one-handed play by Bishop. He ends up getting a second interception later in the game off a drop on a throw that goes right off Garrett Wilson's chest. The first throw was also to Wilson, but that play by Bishop, they end up capitalizing with a nice touchdown from Russell Wilson to Pickens that cut the lead to 15-13 at halftime, and it really changed the game. So to me, it was the total team. The Steelers' defense is better than the Jets. This Jets' defense is not good stopping the run, and tonight they had players hurt in their secondary, and they weren't good stopping the pass either, whereas the Steelers' defense gives you all you can handle, very physical. Deshaun Elliott's back there hitting. TJ Watt's doing TJ Watt things. Alex Highsmith was active in this game. Ogunjobi, and they're just a pretty complete team now when they get their offensive line playing pretty well like they did tonight.
Yeah, you got Peyton Wilson chasing people down in the flat. Yeah, I mean, they're a complete team. You're right. This is a team that was kind of becoming famous for being able to win despite breaking 300 yards of offense. They did it a few times in the first 6 weeks of the season. Tonight, 409. But the most impressive to me, more than anything, the most impressive element of it was they were the more physical team on both sides of the ball. Look, that's Steelers football, right? They're always going to be a tough physical team, but they were remarkably more physical than the Jets were at the point of attack and on both sides of the ball. And I felt that's really what defined their comeback, because they're winning at the point of attack. And the domination just in the physical game, they willed their way into the lead and then just put the Jets into submission, just drove it home with the physical play.
Yeah, the Jets look so despondent at the end of this game. They're 2-5. They fire their coach, they lose. They tried for Devontae Adams, they lose. Devontae Adams ends up with 3 for 30. Not that involved in the second half of this game. Rodgers threw the ball to him 9 times. For only 30 yards. Their best offense was really short passes to Breece Hall that he ends up, breaking for some long receptions, 103 yards, including a 57-yarder. But he's just having to get rid of the ball so quickly for them to make plays, and it's just not happening when he's holding on to the ball. I'm sure they'll have better days, including next week. They'll beat the Patriots to get to 3-5, and their schedule is pretty favorable down the stretch in general. So I'm not ready to totally dig dirt on them, but it's a whole team thing. And Patrick put him on fraud watch a while ago. So have I. And, they're not a complete team. They have all sorts of problems. Everything's just like a little below average, including their defense. Getting rid of Salah has not helped their defense. Shocker.
No, and the worst part is the whole Reddick thing, the fact that he's going to come back this week. It feels like another grab at straws. It's all right, let's go get Devontae and fix our passing game. Let's go get Reddick. And they need him. They absolutely need him. But this is a guy who hasn't been with the team the whole time. So it's just like they're in desperation mode. And when you don't win, despite making desperate moves that you think are going to make your team better, that just starts to build up. I do agree there is a path of sorts for them to get back into it. But they're going to start to run out of time. They got to figure it out. And, the short passing game, that's been their offense all year. It's just it didn't work tonight against the Steelers. It will work in the future, but I need to see more from them right now. You're right, just not a complete team.
Yeah, and you helped me out here as the host. We have not mentioned on the show that Hassan Reddick is coming back. So, yes, that's the big addition for this week. I was wondering what the Jets or Aaron Rodgers was going to do to kind of shake up the narrative, and that was it. And they get the perfect week to play the Patriots and try to get back on the winning side of things to get to 3-5. We'll see. I have noticed, Sauce Gardner, is Sauce Gardner a difference maker this year? I would say no. He's not really having a good year. So different things that you would expect this team to be great at, especially at defense. They're not getting it done. But part of that was they were playing a solid Steelers team who are at 5-2. It's up to the Ravens to match them on Monday Night Football. And yes, Shook, we will be back, the two of us, doing the Monday night doubleheader. And that just wraps up another Sunday, another joyous Sunday.
Beautiful one. Greg, I feel like when Russell Wilson is rolling out throwing touchdown passes to Van Jefferson.
You can't just do this. You can't just try to set me up, but you are absolutely right. Well, yeah, we're playing this music. Here we go. We needed the music. I just want to thank everyone here. Sage Claybon, Malcolm Claybon in the studios, Eric, Randy behind the glass doing a great job, Nick Shook and Patrick. And you're right. When the Jets are blowing games in primetime and the Steelers are finding ways to win, you know football is back.